Here, and then I'm going to go to OBS, and I'm going to back up away from my mic. Uh-oh, that's a lot. I'm actually going to back my mic up to right here. I think this should be pretty good. Yeah, this is pretty good. All right, 3, 2, 1. In today's world, 2D and 3D animation. Nope. Let me go to my thing. Animation has been changing the media. Animation has been changing media since 1908. Animation started off as hand-drawn cells that would be drawn over top of each other, turning images into a moving masterpiece. As the media world moved forward, 2D animation blew up with names like Walt Disney, who made such classics as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pinocchio. As animation continued to develop, the era of 3D animation took the world by storm. Toy Story, Nemo, Cars, all of these have all affected our lives in many different ways. But why is that? And why has it seemed over the past few years that 3D animation has really taken a toll, and that 2D animation feels like it's a dying media? Why does it feel like that 3D animation has really taken a toll, and that 2D animation is a dying media? Can we fix these problems? And is it really 2D and 3D animation that are doing this, but the innovation behind them? Can we fix the media world? All this and more in this paper. Okay, I can probably cut some of that out. Let's scroll down a little bit. 3D animation started in 1995 with the release of Toy Story. 3D animation started in 1995 with the release of Toy Story. This was the first computer animated feature film and unlocked an entirely new world of animation. This changed the scene for animation and led to companies joining the charge with many different 3D animations such as DreamWorks, Illuminations, Blue Sky, and Sony. This world felt so new and fresh that when it started, it gave us How to Train Your Dragon and Up. Both of these films showed that 3D animation was capable of showing complex worlds and complex characters in their own way. For example, How to Train Your Dragon showed that two species can get along, even though they weren't meant to be. And that resolving your issues can actually change your world. And with Up, it dealt with a lot of issues, such as death, hardship, loss, even miscarriage. And those were really hard things to develop, but they were all done beautifully shot in a 3D film. As we follow Carl, you see him and his wife start off very young and in love. And then as it goes along, the visuals back up the fact that she's passed away and he struggled to live his own adventure. And with How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup sees Toothless and is going to kill him to impress his father, but ends up, actually training him to become his best friend. The reason these films felt so inspired was because, well, they used the 3D animation to their fullest of abilities, using their renders going all the way to the top and making these scenes feel larger than life. But why is it over the past few years with releases such as Wish have they felt, well, kind of lackluster? With Wish, the issue is that, well, the animation just didn't feel that great. I mean, in the movie, they didn't use any motion blur or anything like that, making the animations themselves seem very dull. And that's not a bad thing, but they were trying to reference back to 2D animation with that movie, and it didn't really work. It would have benefited them more if they had gone with a 2D style. Going back to the old ways and maybe rotoscoping the whole thing would have really benefited the film. But that comes to the end of this presentation. Is it really an issue with 2D or 3D? I mean, bringing 2D back would definitely help. We can see that with films like Boy and the Heron and other Ghibli films. And we can see how 2D animation is actually changing the world if we look towards Japan, who most of their culture and society is surrounded around anime, which is a beautifully made... Let's back that up. Bringing back 2D animation could inspire the world. I mean, look at Japan, for example. Anime is a huge part of their culture, advertising, everything. But would that help in America? Who knows? But I think the thing that would actually help 2D and 3D animation is inspiration. We've been lacking in inspiration in the past few years, and I think that that's actually what could bring us back to the top. With films like Into the Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, we actually see that happening. They've innovated the game by changing the frame rates to explain how characters feel and move, and they've also used 2D elements like 2D effects and 2D surroundings. For example, in Into the Spider-Verse, whenever he uses his spider senses, it actually shows around his head. And for Puss in Boots and The Last Wish, a lot of the elements that they use to do the fur are a toon shader to give it a 2D effect to make it feel a lot better. We can see the effects of these things if we look at Rotten Tomatoes, with a 97% score on things like Boy and the Heron, and just high scores on both Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, and Puss in Boots. These movies are innovative, and that's what animation needs, is to be innovative. If it can't be innovative, well then, it's not animation. Animations have to feel inspired, and that's what drives our companies to be better, is to feel inspired. And with a lot of animations, especially 3D animations in the recent years, they felt very uninspired. Things like Wish, Lightyear, all of these different movies have felt just kind of wrong. Things in them just don't add up. Their stories don't line up. They feel uninspired. And I think that that's the thing that's going to help our industry, is to become inspired again. Thank you for listening to my presentation.